And I just keep getting this reminder and this nudge of God saying, hey, if this is a God thing, like if this is something I have created and you know it came from me, then I need for you to make sure that it is only me who is defining it. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. My name's theTILAGO. For those of you who do not know me, I talk about all things faith, the faith journey, and living in it on purpose here on the channel. So if you need more of that, you already should know, you should subscribe. But a lot of times, and most of the videos, especially if I'm in the car, are me just coming over here and fleshing out thoughts. So today's thought, or today's thing that I feel like God has really been speaking to me in this season, is to make sure that it is only God who is defining the God things happening in your life. Make sure that it is only God who is defining the God things that are happening in your life. Now, this thought is coming to me because as I'm building this community and as I'm just doing things in my life that I know God is calling me to do, I am finding myself at these crossroads where other people are putting expectations on things, where I'm putting my own expectations on things, where I'm trying to, build this vision and make it. Sometimes like I get in that space of I'm trying to make it my own and do my own thing with things. And I just keep getting this reminder and this nudge of God saying, hey, if this is a God thing, like if this is something I have created and you know it came from me, then I need for you to make sure that it is only me who is defining it. Make sure it's only me who's giving you vision. Make sure it's only me who's giving you the steps that you need to take. Make sure it's only me who's doing all the things, because it started from me. So you don't want to take the reins and try to start now doing it in your own strength. Let me keep being the one who's got the, the heavy lifting and doing the heavy lifting. And so even deeper than that, I've really been, or as I've been building this community, how I know it's a God thing. Let's start there, because a lot of times if you're trying to define it, you want to make sure it started from God, right? So whatever thing he's calling you to build, whatever thing he's calling you to do. And I know some people are like, well, everything is a God thing because God is in control. And yes, God is in control, but y'all know that we be starting things ourselves. Like we be trying to go and do things ourselves. And we know that it's in our own strength that we are doing the things. And we're trying to figure out like, why is it not working? Why is this? Why is that? And we are the ones who are manipulating and strategizing and doing all the heavy lifting. And it's not that God is not going to use it, but it didn't start from him. It didn't originate from God. Does that make sense? It didn't originate from God specifically. I hope that makes sense, because yes, absolutely, God is in control. And so he gives you ideas and he gives you things, but there are those times where you know what I'm talking about. Okay. And I know somebody gonna be in the comments like, everything's a God thing. What are you talking about? But y'all know what I'm talking about. Those things that you start doing and then you realize like, oh snap, this is only me doing this. I never prayed and asked God if he, actually wanted me to do this at this time. I never asked him for how to do this. I never just went to God first. I started it by myself, and then I started trying to include God. And that's where we get in trouble. But a God thing is a thing where like it might be a thing that you actually didn't want to do. It's a thing that like it kept impressing on you, but you're like, I wish I didn't have to do this, or I wish it wasn't me, or you feel inadequate, like you feel like this is way too big, like how could I be the one who's supposed to do this? And we see it all throughout scripture, right? Like we see Moses having God things happen in his life where God is like, hey, you're the one I called to lead these people out of Egypt. And it's like, he's like, no, I'm not the one. Like I can't speak. These people maybe won't respect me. I won't be able to go back to the king, But God is like, no. If it's bigger than you, then you absolutely know that it's for me, and I'm calling you to do it, right? Or maybe we think about like, I'm trying to think of somebody else. We think about David maybe, right? Where he's just starting as a shepherd boy, right? And so he's doing the shepherd boy things in the field, and yet he goes to a place, he's just in the right place at the right time, being led divinely, of course, by God, to just go and give his brothers food. And he gets out there and it's a God thing in front of him. Like, hey, you're going to go fight this battle, but it's going to happen in a godly way. Like you shouldn't, logically, David shouldn't have been able to kill Goliath with stones, smooth stones, right? So I'm just talking about the things that you know God is the only one who's called you to do it. He's the only one who's setting it up, like setting up the stage for you to be able to do it. Those are the types of things I'm talking about as God things, not the things that start with you, right? So this community that I'm building, I really do feel like it's a God thing, because there's so many pieces of it that I'm like, God, this is not the way I would have done this. Like, this is not how I wanted to do this. I don't feel like I'm equipped for this. Like, I keep saying that, right? Thankfully, God has already really met me in my weaknesses, and he's just been bringing the right people to come and help me bringing the right, like showing me my pacing that I need to be on to just stay in step with him in building this, giving me one step at a time, giving me the right patience. Like God is doing his thing. And so essentially, y'all, or another way that I know that it's a God thing, and this doesn't always happen, right? Like you don't always see exponential growth like this, but within 1 month, there are already 420 something women in a group me who have all said yes to wanting to be a part of this community. All I did, y'all, was start with one thread. I posted a thread about it, and then other things have happened. TikToks have been posted, people have been sharing it with everybody, and it's blowing up, and it is a God thing. And people are actually getting met where they are. People are actually coming in and saying like, this is, this, I needed this. Like I was at my lowest point, and then I just scrolled past a TikTok, or I had just ended these friendships and I scrolled past a TikTok, or hey, I'm trying to figure out who Jesus is, and I want other people who are on this journey to be around me. I want to be in community with them. And then this popped up on my feed, And so I know it's a God thing. And I also know it's a God thing because like, I literally, y'all, like I maybe have big visions, but I don't have like this one big glaring like boom, this is what it's supposed to look like vision. Like I keep trying to find one, right? And I think that God has absolutely been gracious in not giving me a huge one. Like he just keeps giving me one at a time, like one step at a time. And I'm about to get food, so I'll come right back and record some more in a second. Okay, so that is how I know that this is all a God thing. And so the reason that this idea or this thought, or the reason I feel like God keeps convicting me with this is because although I absolutely prayed before I started this and continue to pray and continue to ask God, to lead me and help me with all the steps and stuff, there are also moments where I start trying to infuse or just like put my own expectation on it or add my own little 2 cents into, the things that he's doing. And he's like, hey, I am the one who created this, therefore I have a definition for it that you don't like. You need to keep coming to me and asking me for it, not trying to create your own definition for it. So the first person I have to come up against whenever I'm trying to really allow God to define a God thing is myself, because I have my own thoughts, my own expectations, my own wants, my own, things that I'm like, this is how I want it to go and this is how I want it to be. And they're not bad ideas as in like evil ideas, right? They're things that I'm like, well, God, this is how I've seen it work in another space, or this is how I've seen a community look in another space. And he's like, yeah, but we're doing something different here. Every single thing he calls us to do, if he's calling you to do it, then he's calling you to do it in a way that's just even ever so slightly different than how someone else has done it, right? And because of who you are, because of your makeup, because of your experiences, and because of who you are and who you're called to. And so he's always trying to like, I think because, God is so vast and we can't wrap our minds around him. He's always able to like redefine something. Does that make sense? So he's always able to put a wider definition on something. But a lot of times we try to keep, because my vision of a community or women's community or whatever has only looked one way, then it might be hard for me to like expand my mind, expand what I think it should look like. And that's actually, even as I'm talking, this always helps me to process. That's actually really good, because before God asked me to start a women's community, I was like, oh, I'm just going to make one for like men and women. It's going to be all millennials, And that's because honestly, y'all, I ain't really like the vibe with a lot of women's ministries I've like seen or been a part of. Like, I'm not a frou-frou woman. I'm not somebody who just, loves like flowers and rainbows and tea parties and stuff. Like I'm trying to sit and watch football. Like I'm trying to play sports. Like I'm trying to, do all these other kind of things. And I'm like, I've only really seen this one kind of definition of like a woman. And I feel like some days I don't even fit it. Does that make sense? And so God had to like help me with my identity, of course, over the past few years. Like he's really been doing that, like just showing me like, no, I created you to be a woman, and you just have a different, like your what do you call it? The things you're interested in and all that kind of stuff. It just might be a little bit different than the other women that but that doesn't make you any less of a woman. And the way that you move and shake might be different than any other woman that but that doesn't mean that you're less of a woman, right? And so he already had to shape and define that for me, like being a woman, and how, because I was like, well, if I'm not the ideal woman, this is all the enemy's lies coming up in me, right, with this. But if I'm not the ideal woman, then how are the ideal women going to like be attracted to this community. Like, y'all had all the questions, and so I was like, I'm just gonna create it for men and women, because that's what I know, that's what I've led before, so we'll be all right. And God just kept saying, no, I told you you're creating this for women, period. Like, stop trying to do all this other stuff, you're creating it for women. And so he had to help me with that, first of all. So I was the first person I had to come up against in terms of only allowing God to define a God thing, a thing that he is creating in my life and calling me to do. The second, of course, is other people. I have got to make sure I am like protecting what God is calling me to do. And that means not allowing other people's expectations, other people's visions, other people's wants to like crowd or invade the vision that God has for it, or the definition that God has for it. Now, that has happened a lot of times, and it's, oh, sorry, I might be cricket. And that has happened a lot, mainly because people are just, you know, really excited, and they, you know, want to do good things and want to like, want to see this community do X, Y, and Z in the kingdom. But this ain't the space for the stuff they're trying to get it to do. Does that make sense? Like, the stuff that they're wanting to do, some of it, like some of the ideas that I've been getting from other people and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's cool, and I know that's for the kingdom, but that's not, HGH not doing that. Like, somebody need to go somewhere else and find that. And that's okay. Like, we need all parts of the body. That's a big thing that we need to understand. We need all parts of the body. And so, again, other people's visions and ideas of what a women's community group needed to look like started trying to come up against what God was saying for this community. And I kept and I still have to do it, continue to have to protect what God is saying about HGH specifically. And I'm just really grateful that, you know, that he keeps giving me that conviction, and he keeps like bringing me back to himself in this, because it can be hard, y'all. If I said 420 something women, just imagine how many different ideas I'm getting from other women all day long. Like, and again, everybody's super excited. So it's like, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and we should do this, and we should do that, and we should da-da-da-da. I'm like, first of all, fam, we are, at this point, we're only a month old. We're 1 month into this thing. So there's a lot of stuff that isn't defined. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense yet. And there's a lot of stuff that isn't fully organized yet. But what we're not going to do is like not have a foundation and then keep trying to add stuff onto an already already rocky or not built foundation. So I've just been really leaning into God, and what I'm grateful for is that I've never considered myself to be a people pleaser. I know a lot of people these days talk about how they're noticing that in their lives. I've never considered that to be an issue with me. Like, I've probably been a little too far on the other side where I'm like, I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm just going to do what I want to do. But I do believe that in these types of spaces where you're trying to create something that caters to people. I don't know why my phone keeps doing this. I'm really sorry, y'all. But if you're trying to create something that caters to people, then you do start thinking about like, well, would they like this, or would they like that, or would they be interested in this, or would they do this, you know? And so there is an aspect of people pleasing that I have had in me, but I know also that really deep down, and I'm really grateful that I really have settled in my heart and in my soul and in my mind, like, the only person that we need to please with how we are building this community is God. It's a God thing, so he is the only one that we really need to please, and the only one we really need to be looking to for validation and for our, just for success. Like, he's the only person that we need to be looking to. If God says do it, but nobody else is like rocking with it, it don't matter. God said do it, right? So there's been a lot of moments of that already where I feel like God has been like, hey, I want you to have this type of meeting, or I want you to talk about this as a part of the Bible study, or I want you to stop a person in the group from talking about this, or I want you to, like, when I keep feeling and sensing that God is calling me to do that, my people pleasing, the little piece of me that is that, keeps trying to butt up against it and be like, well, what are the ladies gonna think, and what are they gonna do about this, and are they gonna stay with you, and are they gonna keep participating, and are they gonna go create their own thing, and like, all these thoughts keep coming up, and God keeps saying, but what did I say? And that's the question I feel like God keep asking me whenever I keep like having those teeter-totter moments. He's like, but what did I say? Me, God, what did I say, right? And so I just believe that as you are building something, I believe I was supposed to share this because first of all, I'm just sharing it because I don't be trying to share these things as like prophetic words at all, y'all. Like, I just be trying to share them because they're thoughts that are on my mind, and I feel like if they're on my mind, they might be something that somebody else needs to hear. So I like to just throw it out there at y'all too. And so for the person who's also maybe building something, or you have a business or a family even, or just you being yourself, and you're noticing that other people are putting definitions on something that God has a different definition for, or you notice that people are trying to give you good advice and trying to give you good, thoughts and things, but you're like, that's not what God said. Choose what God said. Just choose what God said. Y'all, it has been there is so much fruit when you follow God. That's the only place you're going to really find the fruit. John 15 says, Jesus is talking and he says, hey, I am the vine and you are the branches. Stay connected to me, because apart from me, you can do nothing. You cannot bear any fruit apart from me. So if you're really trying to bear fruit, if you're really trying to make impact, if you're really trying to see that thing be all that God wants it to be, and you are trying to be, specifically yourself, all that God has called you to be, then you've got to stay connected to the vine. That's it. And you've got to keep following the vine, keep seeking the vine, and keep allowing the vine to define the thing that he is doing in your life. So again, y'all, that quick thought I have, and quick thing I'm trying to flesh out is just make sure that God is the only one who is defining the God things that are happening in your life, because he is the only one who can define it in the most perfect, beautiful, and amazing and godly way. So I don't know who this was for. You let me know if it was for you. I would love to hear from you, all the things. But I cannot wait to hear in the comments how this resonated with y'all. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.